when you first like went into it, was it what you expected, or did you get in there and go, wait a minute, like I have to teach and then I have to try to control and get them to behave? Was it overwhelming?
Yeah. I actually started out in a middle school. Okay. And I had this conception that like, oh, I just had bad teachers. Like, it's fine. I'll go in there and I'll just be chill and cool. And then instantly I realized like, oh my God, like, you can't just go in here and be like chill and cool. Like, you need structure. You need rules to run a class. You can't just go in there and think you know everything. Right. And you have to be prepared that like you're not always going to have a good day. Like you're just going to have a day sometimes, and you just have to be okay with that. Yeah, it was not what I expected. But I'm glad I had that reality check pretty early. I realized I didn't want to teach middle schoolers pretty early on. It was like a month in. So I transitioned to high school. But that helped me understand that I really need to focus on like what I want my day to look like when I go to work, and not just, oh, like what I'm going to do, but just like what's my end goal every day. And then what are some strategies I can do to achieve that? So
you mainly focus on just the rule part, right? First going in.
Yeah.
When I went in, it was all about like, I just want to teach. Yeah. Like, I just want to get through. I don't want to have to spend like days talking about, okay, you're going to come in, sit down, and go by these rules.
Yeah.
But that's definitely what you have to do, right?
Yeah. Because, I mean, yeah, the teaching part's the best part, but it feels like that's like 35% of your job when you're teaching. It's like when you actually get to just have like a smooth day of like, wow, I'm going to cover something I really want to teach them, and they are going to love it and be engaged. And you're like, oh my God, that was the best 15 minutes ever. But it's not that. It's a lot of redirection. It's a lot of preparing. It's a lot of anxiety. And it's like, it's a lot of paying attention, differentiation. You can't just go in there and teach. You have to go in there and almost like parent like your students. And I wasn't necessarily prepared for that. That was something I had to learn later.
So you go in, you're really excited about, the lesson, and they'll be excited for the lesson also. Is that how you like?
That's what I wanted, but that's not necessarily what happened. I had to figure out how am I going to, after they weren't excited about the lessons, I had to figure out like, how am I going to make sure that this is relatable to them and they can stay engaged. And that's the main thing. Like, I had to learn how to keep students engaged in this material, because even though it feels so like, why is this not interesting to you? We all have different flavors, and school is not necessarily every kid's flavor.
In a world that's driven by technology and rapid innovation, how do we ensure that human element? Empathy, emotional intelligence, creativity, remain at the forefront of education?
Oi. I feel like this is happening right now with the usage of AI that's coming up in education. There's definitely a divide in the teaching front of like using it as a tool versus just having it take over or not using it at all. I kind of feel like as a teacher, if you are losing your soul, your empathy, your care for the children, or just like this just feels like a day-to-day, like something that just happens, I think it's time to call it quits, find a different career path, because it doesn't change. Like, it's you need these elements to humanize people. Like, maybe you would agree by this, right. But the students are really desensitized like to things. Like, horrible things are happening all around the world, and our kids are just like, oh, ho, 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 it's so funny. Like they're like, oh, like they're making jokes about Diddy right now, and it's like they don't even really understand like what that is even about. They're just like, oh, like it's so funny. Like, they're so desensitized. And I think because of that, it makes them it makes it hard for them to relate to things that are happening. Like they don't care. But that also like really speaks to like the people around them, their educators, their role models, their leaders. And so if we can't keep that, like these very simple values like close to us, then it's like our students don't have a chance. They're gonna continue to be just like, what's the word for this? Non-emotional. Like there's a better word, but we're gonna go with non-emotional.
So I guess because they're using screens and stuff, right, in your class. But do you feel like that teaching, because technology is like moving so fast, that they would still need an instructor or like some type of guidance? Because you can pretty much learn mostly anything, right?
Yeah.
Online, at your fingertips, on your phone.
I mean, yes, but I think when you're young, I think you need to learn the skill. Like you need to learn how to learn. You need to learn how to utilize skills like comprehension, like context clues. And like, those are not skills that every kid just like, nobody's born with that. Like you have to learn that. I think when you leave secondary school, I think you should have these basic skills to be able to like take initiative with your own education. And I think that really comes from like if you choose to go to like higher education, or you're like, you know exactly what kind of job you want and you want to learn, but we have to still teach them like how to learn, like how to take notes. That's actually something we deal with right now at school. I'm telling them we can't just assume that they know how to do everything.
Right.
Like you didn't know how to walk once, so you have to teach them. Even with like, cause in my class, right, we do use screens, but I like to make them pull away from the screens a lot. It's like, come on, guys. Like, we need to have social interactions.
Oh, okay.
That way they know how to communicate with other people, not just like through a screen or on a phone, behind their safe space where they can turn their camera off, but they need to know how to have dialogue. And not knowing how to do that, like our entire society is not completely like online yet. We're still definitely offline on majority of things. And you need to know how to interview for like to get a job. Right. And some of them, they have so much anxiety with the fact that they have to even like talk, like sitting down. It's like, I don't want anybody to hear my voice. So what if they don't like my accent? Like they're too concerned with like this how people will perceive them. Right. And I think that comes from just being so sheltered behind technology that they're not actually like getting experience or letting themselves fail or be disappointed. Like they don't want to fail, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, because especially in art, because for me, that was the biggest thing. I was like, oh my God, now I have to talk about this. Yeah. Now I have to like present it and I have to back it up. So you have like your artwork. Do y'all do things like that to where you're actually teaching them, hey, you got to get up here. Yeah. You got to talk about this and answer questions.
Yeah. They hate it, but I make them do it. Every time they finish an edit for a video, we'll show it in front of class. They're cool with that. And I'm like, okay, now tell us about it. And I ease them into it. I'm like, okay, you can write it out and I'll read it first, right? That's project 1. Project 2, okay, you can present it, but from your desk. And then number 3, it's like you're standing up there and you're telling us about your work and you should be proud to tell us about your work. But it's like you can't just push them and throw them to the wolves. Like you have to ease them into it because they never had to do it. Especially now, like education, they just push people through. So there's so many students who are like really lacking like comprehension, just skills in general. But the main thing is like public speaking. Yeah. These kids do not want to do that. And there's some kids who are excellent and they're like, yeah, I want to do that. But it's because they are just very extroverted and they had that opportunity in life to really polish that skill. But a lot of students haven't. And the only way they're going to get over it is by doing it. And unfortunately, a lot of teachers just rather like, oh, it's okay. Don't worry about it. It's fine. You know, like I get you want to be like the cool person, but it's like you're not helping them. You're actually making the problem worse.